Hello, friends. I'm your host, Dave Layton, and welcome to Signs of Our Time, discovering America's heritage, one sign at a time. This podcast is designed to provide the story behind the story found on America's roadside historical signs. Now, usually I talk about an actual historical marker, but again, today I'm taking a little bit of a departure on that. In this episode, I'm speaking with Steve Bodnar. Steve, did I pronounce your name right?
Yes, you did, Dave. Thanks.
Okay, good. Steve is with the William G. Pomeroy Foundation, and I'm going to let Steve introduce himself and tell us about the foundation and his role with it. Hello, Steve.
Thank you, Dave. My name is Steve Bodnar, and I work for the William G. Pomeroy Foundation. We are the leading funder of historical markers in the United States. I've had the good fortune of working for the Pomeroy Foundation for almost 8 years now, and my role is working directly with our grant recipients and partners in telling the great success stories about their historical markers. And I am a lifelong history enthusiast myself. I enjoy going to historic sites and museums, and my profession has always been in communications. So there was a real natural alignment when the opportunity came up to be the first communications manager for the William G. Pomeroy Foundation, especially as all of these historical marker programs were taking off. And I have personally visited more than 800 historical markers. I'm quite the historical marker enthusiast. And so, with the passion that really aligns with the foundation's mission, again, it's just been a real pleasure to be part of this great work and work in partnership with the professional historians on the Pomeroy Marker team and Bill Pomeroy. It's just a great time to be involved in public history.
Well, I came across the Pomeroy Foundation with two other guests that I have, and it's fascinating. I went to the website and researched it a little bit, and I'm glad that you and I connected. Well, let's talk about the Pomeroy Foundation. How did it start? Because that's a fascinating story.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the William G. Pomeroy Foundation is the leading funder of historical markers in the United States.
Okay.
As of December 2025, we have funded over 3,000 historical markers across the country in 49 states and Washington, D.C. The Pomeroy Foundation was established by our trustee and founder, Bill Pomeroy, an entrepreneur, philanthropist. Bill is active in the leadership of the foundation every day. We're based in Syracuse, New York. And Bill started the foundation when he was battling acute myeloid leukemia 20 years ago. And when his survival was in doubt, he wanted to ensure that people in a similar situation would have the type of opportunity that he had to beat AML. And so he created the Pomeroy Foundation and established our first initiative, which was helping to find appropriate donor matches and other life-saving treatments for blood cancer patients. And that's really a core part of Bill's passion for why we're doing this through the Pomeroy Foundation. Now, Bill Pomeroy is also a lifelong history enthusiast. He's got fond memories of going with his dad on sales trips when he was a boy growing up, and they would stop and read historical markers together. And so that memory stayed with Bill over the years, and he's been very interested in history, family genealogy. And so when he started the foundation, there was some need locally here in the Syracuse area for historical markers, for refurbishing some, for putting in some new ones. And that's when it came on Bill's radar that in New York State, where we're based, the official state program stopped the funding for it in around the late 1930s. So all the decades between then and now, local communities needed to do their own fundraising to get historical markers. And Bill, as a philanthropist, saw an opportunity to fill that gap. And the rest, as they say, is history. We have started funding markers in Onondaga County, where Syracuse is based, and then some local counties, and then we grew statewide, and now we're doing grant making for historical roadside markers nationwide. The grants cover the entire cost of the marker, the pole, and the shipping. And it's really another major part of what we do at the William G. Pomeroy Foundation, Bill's two greatest passions in life. And as the marketing communications person for the William G. Pomeroy Foundation, it's just been a real pleasure to be able to work for Bill Pomeroy to support the Pomeroy Foundation's national mission in both of those categories.
Wow, that's awesome. Some of the things you mentioned about Bill, I'm a blood cancer survivor also. So when I saw that on the website, that really piqued my interest. And what he is doing supports what I say so many times. When you've been through something, whatever, life-changing, you just can't help but want to turn around and help others, pull them through this, either directly or by example or whatever. So I appreciate that he's done that. And he does it on two levels. That's what's great. Not only the funding to help with the blood cancers, but also with this history. He's living the dream. I like the mission statement that is on your website because you do talk about that, preserving history, and then improve the probability of finding appropriate donor matches. Again, that's just that idea of turning around and helping out with that. That's great. Did you say that since December of this year that there's been over 3,000 markers funded? Did I hear that right?
That's right. That's
Wow.
right. As of December 2025, right now, while we're recording this podcast, the William G. Pomeroy Foundation has funded over 3,000 historical markers and plaques in some instances across the country, across the United States. There's at least one Pomeroy-funded historical marker or plaque in 49 states, including Alaska, and multiple markers in Washington, D.C. The only state where there isn't a Pomeroy-funded marker is Hawaii.
Is there, you work with different companies to build these markers. Is there something about one of these markers that somebody would say, oh, that's funded with the Pomeroy Foundation? Is there some indicator on there?
That's a great question. So for every Pomeroy-funded historical marker or plaque, there is a credit line at the bottom. And that credit line will say the William G. Pomeroy Foundation. And so when you see the historical marker and you see our organization's name on it, then you can rest assured that is a top quality Pomeroy-funded historical marker.
Okay.
And one of the things that, we really pride ourselves on when it comes to historical markers is our primary source requirements for our historical marker applications. We really like to think of ourselves as the gold standard of historical markers. We have professional historians on the Pomeroy Foundation staff who review every single application that comes through our door. And the vast majority of those programs require primary sources to support the facts on the inscriptions of the markers. So when folks are out there visiting the markers, reading them, they can really rest assured that these have been reviewed by professional historians or through our Legends and Lore program, professional folklorists who are using academic quality sources to verify those stories in those communities. So we really set a high standard, a rigorous standard for the application process. But we want everybody to be successful. So we work with them on providing recommendations where there may not be a source, or thinking through other ways of conducting that historical research to, again, ensure that those markers that are getting installed publicly are there for people to enjoy and know that what they're reading is based on historical evidence.
So I noticed on the website that there are different categories of historical markers that you consider for the grant. Could you talk to that just a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So the William G. Pomeroy Foundation offers two categories of our marker grant programs. The first is what we call our signature programs. These are grant programs for historical markers that are administered directly through the Pomeroy Foundation. So we have a variety of themes that we offer through these different national historical marker grant programs. We have a program called Hungry for History, which is a food-themed category. We have a program called Historic Transportation, and this is all about commemorating transportation landmarks like canals and bridges and aviation. It's a really, really fantastic program that has grown in popularity in recent years. It's one of our newer programs. We also have a national program called Hometown Heritage. And this program is all about recognizing local history, local people, local places, local events. And it's really a way for communities to be able to recognize what history is important to their community with a roadside marker. And oftentimes it might not qualify for a state program where it might need statewide significance or even national significance. This is really on the local level. We also have another program called the National Register. And so this program provides historical roadside markers or plaques for public properties or historic districts on the National Register of Historic Places. So when a property is designated to the National Register, it doesn't come with funding for signage. So some of these sites, many of these sites, in fact, don't actually have signage saying that they're on the National Register, or local communities need to do some fundraising to get a plaque on their own. We fill that gap by providing full funding for historical marker or plaque in that category of historic sites. We also have what's very unique, a folklore marker program. So where you see kind of a traditional historical marker, we have a theme that's specific to folklore, folk life, traditions, legends. Think the legend of Sleepy Hollow or the legend of John Henry. We work with professional folklorists in multiple states to review the inscriptions on those markers. And that way we know that the folklore is true, air quotes, to the community. And that's another way that we vet those.
You're leaving out, to me, the most important one. It's probably what you're going to talk about next. The food.
The food program. That's right. Yes. So, yeah. So we have a national historical marker program called Hungry for History. It's food themed. And we thought that it would be great if we could just tie together all of the rich history around local and regional cuisines in the country. And so this is a really exciting program that's seen a lot of interest. It's one of our newer programs, and some of the examples that I'll share are Smith Island cake, a layered cake that is the state dessert in Maryland. We did a Hungry for History marker here in Syracuse for Syracuse salt potatoes, which has a rich history going back to the salt industry here. We also have a historical marker for various dessert. We have got historical markers for various desserts like Sonker in South Carolina or chocolate jumbles in Esperance, New York. So, you know, if people and the foods that they have that are part of their cultural heritage in their communities, it's so important to them. And having this Hungry for History food-themed historical marker program is a really exciting way to engage people around that.
Okay, that's great. You know, as you were saying all that, what came to mind is that history covers such a wide, broad stroke of things. It's not just George Washington crossing the Delaware kind of a thing. It's just history is such a rich part of our heritage, and you guys are helping to document it and sustain it by these historical markers. And so that's great. I'm interested in, let's say I'm interested in applying for a grant. I noticed that there's a grant review season. Uh, Somebody doesn't have to wait until that season starts. They should really start gathering data, getting their contacts. You said the primary source is obviously critical. They can start doing that now. So when does the application season begin, I guess is what I should say.
Absolutely. So people can start preparing for their grant applications at any time on our website, wgpfoundation.org. We have landing pages for each of our respective marker grant programs that provides the guidelines, the marker criteria, all of the things that are necessary for an application. So people can start conducting research and preparing now. And typically we've got 2 grant seasons per year. One is in the spring and one is in the fall. So we're going to be coming up on spring 2026 soon, and several of our marker grant programs will be opening in that time frame. So the Historic Transportation Program, Hungry for History, Hometown Heritage, these programs will open up again between March, April, maybe into early May. Check our website, wgpfoundation.org, to learn about what those exact details are for each of those grant programs. We also have how-to guides on our website that help people prepare for applying. The grant windows are pretty generous, so even once it opens, there's still time to conduct research. But if you're going to be planning to apply for a marker, it's always good to start thinking early, especially since each of these applications will require a land permission letter. So you're going to want to work with the property owner, hopefully in advance, to have some discussions about getting that signed letter and that permission for installation, which is an application requirement.
As you've talked about this, there is a strong educational component to this. It's not just putting it up for the sake of putting it up. There is that educational element to it. I like that.
There absolutely is. And so, one of the benefits of historical markers is educating the public. Mm-hmm. Markers help communities better understand their own local history. They're an opportunity to learn more about local history, maybe conduct some research at your local library or look something up online. They're really a way of sparking intrigue and interest. And so that education piece has always been a common thread through all of our historical markers that we fund, so much so that we actually launched the Pomeroy Education Program. This is a national initiative where we provide a historical marker research curriculum free to educators anywhere in the country so that they can work with their students on selecting local topics to research and work through a grant application process with the opportunity to apply for a Pomeroy funded marker. And we have had many success stories to date. We've already worked with over 20 educators around the country. There's some wonderful, wonderful examples. If you go to the Pomeroy Foundation's website, we actually have a marker map that lists every single one of the markers that the Pomeroy Foundation has funded. And there is a filter feature that can show you those markers that were led by students. And those students range from middle school all the way through college. And it's just a really, really fantastic program that is helping younger generations to engage in local history, community history, research, just really inspiring them to be involved in what their community has to offer.
If I were a history teacher, I would be all over this because that's living history. That's not something that's dry. There's something else the Pomeroy Foundation does that I noticed that I'm actually going to try to do this year, and that's restore or clean some markers. Would you speak to that just a little bit? Because I love that. By the way, I have a guest, the previous guest, that's what he does in Texas. He goes out, cleans and restores markers. So Craig Woolsey. So
That's
go ahead,
amazing.
please.
Thank you, Craig.
Yeah.
The initiative that you're referencing is National Historic Marker Weekend. So looking at 2026, we're heading into our sixth annual national event. This is an all-volunteer event where communities are encouraged to go out and clean historical markers and take care of the areas where they're located. And this is really a way to help people not only engage and learn about their local history, we were just talking about the education piece, but also a way to help beautify their communities and take care of these markers so that they can last. So after a long winter or where the markers are located along roadways and you've got dust and salt and all of those kinds of things, a good cleaning in the spring is a great way to help those markers shine, bring attention to it. There's a lot of media coverage and a lot of online engagement around National Historic Marker Weekend. We have a registration page on our website that folks can sign up, and we'll send them some swag and help acknowledge that they're volunteers, but it's open to everybody. We've seen over 30 different states represented, over 2,000 volunteers, civic groups, student groups, neighbors, friends, families. It's just a fun time. It's 3 days. It's the last weekend of April, every April. So mark your calendars and volunteer and get out there and take some photos of your group with the markers. And it's just a great time to celebrate local history and be involved in, improving and revitalizing your community. It's a great and fun opportunity. And, folks out there like Craig who are refurbishing markers and taking care of them year round, kudos to all of you. You're doing a real service, a real public service for your community.
I could see for this event, somebody could maybe get a hold of local Boy Scout troops, Girl Scout troops, civic groups, and sponsor that. It would give publicity to them as well. So that, and I like what you're saying. There's a sense of community. You're preserving the history as well as getting the information out. That's a great program in and of itself. I love that. Correct.
Dave, you're absolutely right about that. You're absolutely right about that. Engage with your local Boy Scout troops, your local Girl Scouts, bringing, young people together. We often see young people out there volunteering with friends, family, civic groups, school groups. There's just so many ways you could do it. And it's open to everybody. This is just a volunteer event, a nice way for you to really get involved in your local community. So appreciate those comments.
We have an Air Force base close by us. I could see some of the squadrons on the base just getting all over this. We're always looking for community involvement things, and so that would be a fun thing to do.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. And also, to clean a marker and plan for it, it doesn't take too long. You just need, a bit of soapy water, a bucket, some sponges, maybe a toothbrush, and just get out there and polish it up. It's a good time.
I mentioned to you before we got started that there's a historical marker just outside of my neighborhood, and it needs a lot of love, and I'm going to personally adopt that one. It has a little bit of a lean to it also. I kind of like to straighten it up as well as clean it up. I drive by it every day. So I got to get after that one. We always see folks
doing some good improvements too with the markers, whether they're refurbishing it or maybe kind of straightening out the pole if the marker's a little tipped. We've seen landscaping. People will put some mulch down, plant some flowers. There's just so many ways you could look at it.
This particular one is on the highway right away. I can't do any landscaping, but I can certainly clean it up, make it look nice. Okay. What's the future for the Pomeroy Foundation? Sounds like you've got a lot going on.
We have so much going on. So, we talked about the education program, and one of the major things that we have really been growing is our engagement with younger generations and how they connect to history, local history. And we just did a webinar with the National History Club recently, talking to chapters about engaging young people in historical marker research. These are skills that translate well into careers, into all sorts of fields. If you have curiosity, if you're able to conduct research and write and think about the things that are important to your community and become a problem solver, I mean, we're really setting folks up for success. So, one of the things that we also like to emphasize is civic literacy, engaging in public history. These are all really critical components. So the education piece and continuing to grow that is really important to us. And, one of the areas that we also continue to grow is our partnerships. So we have wonderful regional and national partners that we've developed historical marker programs with. Leading up to the centennial of the 19th Amendment, we partnered with the National Collaborative for Women's History Sites and did over 220 suffrage markers across the country. Wow. That was such a major, major trail with so much attention around history and the history of women's suffrage. What an incredible partnership. We have other partners that we work with currently. The Lafayette Trail is another great partner of ours. This is a partnership that commemorates General Lafayette's 1824-1825 farewell tour when he returned to the United States as the last surviving major general of the American Revolution. We just went through the bicentennial period. We worked with the Lafayette Trail in funding over 200 markers across 25 states and Washington, D.C. We also have another great partner in Rails to Trails Conservancy and a Trails Across America program. They have a network of 42,000 miles of rail trails, and getting people to be interested in the local history around these trails, along these trails, another point of engagement in local history. So we've got a lot of great partnerships currently and on the horizon, our education program, lots of really fun, engaging things happening around historical markers. I always like to say that we're going through a bit of a historical marker renaissance. Yeah, some of these first programs came out about a century ago in states like Virginia or New York or Pennsylvania. And, now there's so many options and opportunities, especially through the Pomeroy Foundation and programs like Hungry for History, and really thinking of creative and innovative ways to engage with local history and connecting the physical world to digital worlds with things like a digital marker map and being able to view them virtually and then go and visit them in person. There's just so many exciting opportunities. And, Bill Pomeroy, our founder, is really excited about those types of innovations. And so there's a lot to look forward to.
This is our nation's 250th anniversary this next year. I would expect there to be some commissioning going on for that activity as well. Such a rich heritage that people just don't know about. And yes, they may know of the big things, but there's untold number of small pieces that build that tapestry of our great nation. And you guys are supporting that. I love it.
Dave, you're so right about that. And I wanted to share in light of the 250th that we actually have two partner programs that are involved with Revolutionary War history. So one of our great partners is the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution, the DAR. And we have a Revolutionary War marker program with them that's available nationally through DAR chapters. And we are recognizing those unsung heroes, those untold stories, underrepresented voices in the Revolutionary War period, 1775 to 1783. And there was just a couple of dedications recently, one in Florida, one in Tucson. Just really exciting stuff going on with the DAR through that program, and obviously quite timely. And we're also partners with state chapters of the Sons of the American Revolution. We've got multiple state partners through what we have as the Patriot Burials Program. So this is a program where historical markers are placed at the burial sites of Revolutionary War veterans or
Okay.
patriots, those who supported the cause for American independence but might not have served directly.
Mhm.
And that is another program that is growing exponentially. And we have funded over 200 markers across multiple states through our Patriot Burials Program in partnership with the SAR. So between
Yeah.
the DAR and the SAR and our work with them in those historical marker programs, there's a lot happening, especially in light of the 250th.
The Pomeroy Foundation is to be congratulated for its initiatives, not just in historical markers, but in the other areas as well. And I appreciate them very, very much and hope to continue working with that. Yeah. I notice you work also with J.J. Pratt with the historical marker database. And J.J. was also a guest on the podcast. And so again, this education component, the interaction with others, it really helps get that word out about it.
It absolutely does. And the historical marker database, hmdb.org, has really, and JJ and all of the volunteers there have really done a really wonderful job mapping out historical markers from all programs, from all locations, and building an incredibly robust database that I know has more than 200,000 listings the last time I looked. Quite the amazing effort. And if you're interested in engaging with historical markers in your community, that's always a really fantastic resource that provides a robust snapshot of everything happening in the historical marker landscape.
Yeah, that's my default research spot when I begin researching a historical marker. So yeah, that's really a good resource. Okay. Well, my friend, I need to wrap up. I tell you, this is fascinating to me. You start undoing the layers on historical markers. There's a whole lot there that we don't think about and can add to it. Okay.
Dave, there truly is. There is. There's so much more. They're a launching point for curiosity and sparking interest. And I'm just so happy to be with you today and be able to share that with your audience.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed it too. All right. Well, friends, there you have it. The story behind the story from America's historical signs and markers. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to subscribe and continue to listen as we bring more episodes about the rich heritage of our great nation. Please share this podcast with others. If you have interesting stories about historical signs and markers, email me at americanhistoricalmarkers@gmail.com. That's americanhistoricalmarkers@gmail.com. Maybe your story behind the story will be featured. I'm your host, Dave Layton, and thank you for listening and safe travels.